everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews and Rotoscopers. And today we have another one of our Sundance animators that we're talking with this season. And we have Jesse Moynihan here with us. He's the animator behind Jesus 2, the new short at Sundance Film Festival. And thank you so much, Jesse, for coming on the podcast.
Hey, what's up? It's nice to meet you.
Yeah. So this is your first time on the podcast. So I'd like to give you a chance to get to know you, to introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit of how you got started animating.
Well, I came out of comic books. So,
Oh.
actually, I came from live action films. So originally, I wanted to be a filmmaker. I went to film school at Temple University in Philadelphia. And while I was there, while I was in film school, I didn't have money, so I couldn't afford to make films. So I never made a senior project or anything like that. I just couldn't afford at the time, like I couldn't afford a 16 millimeter film, the amount I needed, and I didn't have the social skills to put a team together. I felt like really at that time in my early 20s, just like so antisocial. I made like two friends in my film program. Um, but so I was watching a lot of Jodorowsky movies like El Topo and Holy Mountain, and he was a big inspiration to me. And he, in the 70s, after he made his cult films, he couldn't get funding for movies he wanted to make. And so he started making comic books. And so I was like, oh yeah, I could do that. It would cost me just the cost of paper and ink to make. And so I just started putting all my film ideas into comics and applying for grants and stuff like that. And I started self-publishing and going around to comic conventions and selling my comics and then getting to know publishers. And I was starting to get published. And then Penn Ward, who created the show Adventure Time, found my comics at a convention in Bethesda, Maryland, at this convention called SPX. And a couple months later, he offered me a job because that was the around the end of this first season of Adventure Time.
Oh,
He,
wow.
he was looking for new storyboard artists, so he reached out to me, and it was more complicated than him just offering me a job. But after about 6 months, I moved to LA and started working in animation, and that was in 2009. And I kept doing comics, but my career has been animation since then. Um, and I worked on Adventure Time for like 7 years.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, and just been hopping along to different animation productions and trying to get my own stuff made and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
that's how I got into the biz.
that's really cool. So did you have films? You mentioned what was the filmmaker you mentioned?
Oh, Alejandro Jodorowsky.
Oh, okay.
He was
So,
like a midnight movie, sort of like surreal filmmaker.
oh, that's
He had a
cool.
big influence on me.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Like, if you had films that were particularly influential, particularly animated films.
Animated films, I think, yeah, like Fantastic Planet had
Mm-hmm.
an impact on me.
Mm-hmm.
The films of Ralph Bakshi in
Mm-hmm.
general,
I can see that.
hugely
Yeah.
influential on me. I grew up watching, I had VHS copies of Wizards and Fire and Ice and Cool World, and I would just like watch them
Mm-hmm.
over and over again. When I got older, I watched Fritz the Cat, but his like sort of hustle and his ability to turn like a zero budget into something always like impressed me, and um, and I just love the vibe of Wizards. I've got like actually I have some cells from Wizards
Oh,
in my
really? That's
yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. And do you feel like all that time working on Adventure Time that influenced your art as well? I would.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. People, I worked on that show for so long that absorbed some of the DNA of it, and I really tried while I was working on it to not become absorbed by Adventure Time. I wanted to have my own distinct art style from that show. But if you work on a show for long enough and you're hanging out with all these other artists, you start to share. It becomes like a commune, and you start to share techniques with each other.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Sure.
how this is how I approach hands. This is how I approach like depicting action and things like that, and like expressions. And you start to see what's nice about the way someone else is drawing expressions and things like that. And you're all just kind of stealing from each other. And
Yeah.
um, eventually, you can't help but have some shared DNA with other people on the crew. Yeah,
Were you always an artist, always a sketcher?
yeah. I drew. My mom gave me pen and paper like when I was, I don't know, 3,
Mm-hmm.
something like that, and was encouraging me to draw all the time instead of, playing video games and stuff like that. So I was heavily encouraged to be creative, and so
Mm-hmm.
I drew all my life. I was drawing comics when I was a kid in middle school and elementary school. I have comics dating back to that time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I just didn't take it seriously as a
Yeah.
thing I could actually do for a career. Um, I didn't know I could until I there were some there was some time in like the 90s when people were releasing pamphlets and stuff saying, "Oh, you could become an independent comic artist," and things like that. I Once I became aware of the underground comic scene, that's when I was like, "Oh, I could do this
Mhm.
actually." Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. When I watched the short, I wondered if like Rick and if it felt like Rick and Morty
Mhm.
vibes a little bit. Just
Uh,
in,
I don't
I
know.
wondered if
I like Rick and Morty.
yeah,
Um,
just in the sci-fi, the surrealism of it,
mm,
the some violent moments, things like that,
yeah.
kind of made me think.
I think I mean I definitely was heavily influenced by all the like legacy of Adult Swim.
Mm, yeah,
Like I grew up on that stuff, and like Super Jail was had a huge impact on me. I don't know if you ever watched Super Jail. But that vibe of whole like irreverent, like violent Western cartoons is probably that's like my wheelhouse. I don't know. So
yeah,
probably is some Venn diagram where Rick and Morty.
yeah,
I've only watched like I've actually only seen maybe 3 or 4 episodes of Rick and Morty, so I'm not sure.
yeah.
But I
Well,
remember liking it. The ones I
uh-huh.
saw I thought were really funny.
Well,
So
why don't you tell the audience a little bit about the short? Give them an idea.
yeah, the short is called Jesus 2. I originally I developed it a long time ago. It was called Smuggle Brothers years ago, and I developed it at Cartoon Network for like a year. And I got to the point where I made a storyboard for them and I pitched it to their network head, and they gave me
Hmm.
the thumbs down. But it wasn't about what it is about now. Back then, it was like me riffing on sort of like a Han Solo, Chewbacca, space pirates, space smugglers kind of thing. And and then it just sat on my shelf after it got rejected by Cartoon Network. It just sat on my shelf in sketchbooks and stuff for years. And every once in a while, if I was at a pitch meeting or something like that, like talking to some people who make shows, they'd be like, "Oh, do you have any other ideas?" And I was like, "Well, I made this thing called Smuggle Brothers," and I would show it to them, and they would look at it and they'd say, "Oh, this is cool, but it's too weird." And so um, I just kept whittling
You're
away.
like, that's like a compliment in a way, saying it's too
Yeah,
weird.
yeah, or something. It didn't fit whatever they were looking for at the time. There's always like this unknown psychic target that's
Hmm.
moving with these networks. They're every season they're chasing some trend or something. They're seeing something happening, and then you don't, as a person who's making up ideas, all you can do is make up things you think would be cool to watch. So
Mhm.
you don't know if you're lining up with that chase trend that they're looking.
Yeah, yeah, that makes
Uh,
sense. Yeah.
so I
Well,
took the idea and I just kept stripping it away. I stripped away all the things I developed at Cartoon Network with it, and I was like, what do I want this to be about? Actually, if I were to just make this, I had all the money I have. If I was a multimillionaire on my own, just making it, what would I do? And I was having these like deep, sort of like anxiety attacks and things like that about dying and about losing my family and all this kind of stuff. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna make a cartoon about death, um, about the necessity of death, and as a sort of like counter argument to myself, to my own anxiety and fear, and so I made this story about this Messiah who flies around on a black comet, and these black comets or black orbs are like a big major motif in my work. And he flies around on a black orb, and he sprays this like goo all over the universe. And when the people absorb the goo, they can't die.
mhm.
And and so it's been thousands of years of no one dying, and it's sort of everyone's dealing with their immortality in different ways. Some people just totally check out and find ways to to distract themselves from life completely. And then other people embrace power and are on this like multi whatever hundreds of years of like ascension to power over the universe and stuff like that. And some people are fighting to kill that want to kill this uh creature named Jesus too in order to restore mortality to the universe.
Right.
And so that's what these two brothers are trying to do, and they're communing with like angels and stuff like that in order to get power to destroy Jesus.
Yeah.
So it came a long way from my original Cartoon Network
Yeah.
pitch.
Well, one of the things that impressed me the most about it was the colors that you were
Yeah.
able to achieve and just the incredible backgrounds that you had. I mean, what was that process like creating?
That was just um, like years of um, grinding.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are some backgrounds that just took me, some like single background paintings I did that just took me months to get to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I ever did a production of it. I don't know what I would do. Um, yeah, I just had, there was no time limit. It was just whenever I get this done. And then I worked with some people, this guy Adrian Dexter, who helped me paint the city backgrounds. And we worked that back and forth. We would go back and forth for months about like how to approach what
Hmm.
cities looked like in this sort of hell future.
Yeah.
And we
Well, and
would
it's
compare those
almost
to
got
our
like a
own
coral
styles.
reef kind of feel at
Yeah.
certain things, which is just really cool.
Yeah, I developed like a new, it was like me testing new ideas I had about painting for myself. I mean, obviously not new for the world, but for me, I was like
Uh-huh.
testing, I was like, because I art directed a show called Midnight Gospel on Netflix. And
Uh-huh.
on that show, I worked with a bunch of background painters and we all sort of workshopped ideas. And from there, I really felt like, okay, I understand. I working on that show and like having to make decisions about the look of the backgrounds and stuff like that, and trying out different techniques. I was just throwing shit at the wall. So when I looked back in retrospect, I thought to myself, okay, this works. This works. What if I took this to another? level. So I was looking back at my past work on Midnight Gospel and then trying to take it
Yeah.
one step or a few steps forward in terms of my craft, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It must have been exciting when it all like came together, when you had music, when you had all of it, and you got to see it.
Yeah, it's so gradual, but definitely working with the musicians, the two composers I worked with, Troy Harrion and Joe Wong, um, because I had like temp tracks and things like that. Like originally, I had Messiaen, the composer, like over a lot of it, and I had to find a composer who worked with like within the classical music, modern classical music sphere. So luckily my friend Alex knew someone and he recommended this guy Troy to me, who's a composer in New Jersey. And yeah, he just like delivered amazing uh super dense sounding. I wanted it to be like um if you're in a theater watching it, I wanted it to be like really big and sounding like scary. Scary like you're seeing something you're seeing something beyond the like material existence that I don't know if you've ever seen or thought you saw a ghost or whatever, but it's like that fear you get. I was trying to capture the
Yeah.
fear
Yeah.
of the unknown. And then at the same time, I got Joe Wong to compose the Jesus 2's theme song, which was I was listening to a lot of Japanese city pop. Do you ever listen to city pop music?
No.
It city pop was like sort of like smooth pop, jazz influenced pop music in the 80s. At the time when the Japanese economy was doing really well, like probably the best in the world and stuff, and everyone was just like spending money, going on vacation and at the top of like the ladder of like technology and yeah, and money and stuff like that. And so the music sort of reflected that at the time, this like cultural, almost like superficial optimism. And I wanted to capture, I felt like that was the essence of this character, um, at least superficially. And then beneath the surface would be this like deep darkness. Um, so I was like, Joe, I need you to write me like a city pop influenced theme song for this character.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
cool.
yeah, and he did
Yeah.
it.
Well, you must have been so excited when you found out you got accepted to Sundance.
It was I still like don't really get it. I don't understand. I don't know why that happened.
Yeah.
But I'm in the Midnight Shorts program, which then makes
Hmm.
more sense to me.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I submitted to Sundance. I was like, well, I have to try.
Yeah.
um, and and then I got a call from them and I was like, yeah, okay. I guess that, sure. So I've sort of been in shock about it a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know how to react to it, to be honest. I told my it took me a couple days before I even told anyone because I
Honestly,
did.
I think you're even better off being in the midnight shorts because I like people love those midnight screenings.
Okay, that's cool.
That whole I think more people will see it.
Yeah, that's good to know because yeah, it never would have got I don't think it ever would have gotten into normal anime. It's too violent and um too the humor's too crude,
They
you
can be
know.
pretty out there sometimes, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a good spot for it. And but what would be your advice to animators who hope to submit to Sundance who are trying to make a short on this journey?
I think that, I've been rejected from a lot of festivals. Like I submitted to a lot of festivals, and I got into a few. And I still am getting accepted into a few here and there. But there were some that I really wanted to get into that I didn't. I was like crossing my fingers and I didn't get in, you know? And I think it's really, I do think it's kind of random in a weird way
Mhm.
because the people who are curating these festivals all have different tastes.
Sure.
You just don't know who you're going to line up with. So you might not get into like Jesus 2 didn't get into some big festivals and then got into like Sundance. So I don't know. I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to it. I think it really is um, just the specific tastes of the panel of people who are curating
Yeah.
the festivals. So I my suggestion is just if you've got the budget, apply everywhere. To apply to
Yeah.
all of them, as many as you can. I applied to as many as I could before I started going like cross-eyed. I just went on like Film Freeway and applied to
Yeah.
every festival. I that seemed reputable, every festival, and for animation, every festival that sort of like specializes in animation.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um,
Cool.
yeah, but I mean, obviously, most of Sundance is live action, and they've got like a specific program for animation. But
Yeah.
uh, so I
Yeah,
got it.
I don't think
Yeah,
they have any feature films animated this year. Usually they have like one or two.
there's one that I think is an animated documentary.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
I can't remember what it's called, but I saw a trailer for
Mm. I'll have to check that out.
it. Yeah,
Well, we like to end our interviews with some fun get to know you questions. So here's the first one. What's the best ice cream flavor?
coffee,
Okay. What's your favorite color?
hot pink,
Okay. What music are you into?
prog rock.
Okay. What is your go-to date night food?
Go to date night food. Mm, I guess. Hmm. Pizza,
Yeah, that's good. What
maybe.
would be your go-to date night activity if you're going out doing something?
Um, Good question. I feel like I ask this to myself all the time. I don't know. I like to go out to like botanical gardens.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
good. Okay, which do you like better, dogs or cats?
Okay, I love them both, but I'm a cat. I have a cat.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Which do you like better, beaches or mountains?
Mountains.
Okay. What is your favorite holiday to celebrate?
Thanksgiving.
Oh, nice. Last question. What is your favorite animated film all time?
Favorite animated film of all time. I'm gonna say I don't know if this is true, but I'm gonna say Nausicaa,
Uh-huh.
like the
Oh,
Wind.
it's a good one. Good one.
But it could be because I love the graphic novel.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh, I
Well,
think that
it's a wonderful film. I think it's just like a peaceful, even though it's a dystopian and this crazy, but there's something I find oddly like peaceful about it.
yeah, I think it's I think well, I see I conflate the manga with the
Mm-hmm.
film, but I think that story at its in its whole is like one of the greatest stories I've ever read
Yeah.
watched. So
Yeah.
Nausicaa is great
Good
and
choice.
and but
You
I
can't
did
ever go wrong with Miyazaki. I mean,
yeah, I mean I
oh,
did think Boy and the
obviously.
Heron Boy and the Heron to me when I watched it, I was like I think that's his best movie. So I don't know what I'm saying.
Very good. You did it. You answered all the questions.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming and talking with us. And if people want to follow you on socials or anything like that, do you have anything you want to share?
My Instagram is jmoyns, JMOYNS. That's
Great.
probably the easiest place to find me.
Great. Well, congratulations on the festival, and it's great to get to meet you.
Thanks. Nice to meet you.
Are you a fan of Rachel's Reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies. I'd like to thank Jesse for coming on the podcast. This was so much fun to get to talk with him. Let me know what you think about all the things we talked about in the comments section or on Twitter. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. If you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. Really appreciate that. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And check out the patron group. That's the biggest way you can support everything we're doing. And also the merch store where we have my Festival Girl shirts and also hashtag Animation Junkie shirts. Lots of fun stuff. Take a look at that. And thanks again to Jesse. We'll talk to y'all later.